Hi everybody, Georgia Stull, Heartland Quilt Works here, and today I'm going to talk to you about how I load a quilt. I do it a little bit more unconventional than a lot of people. I am the queen of somebody says, I can do something faster and easier, I will try it. I just am going to try it. And my theory is if it doesn't affect the quality of the quilt at the end and it makes me more efficient, I'm good for it. So I'm pretty sure Karen Farnsworth and I both are staplers. I use a swingline electric rechargeable stapler. It has a dock that it sits in anytime I'm not loading a quilt. I do about 250 quilts a year, and I'm in my 12th year, and I've actually worn out a stapler. This is stapler number 2. So it just makes my life faster and easier. I can generally load a queen size quilt in from the hanger to quilting in about 15 minutes. So let's talk about how we get that done. I prefer, well, before I do that, I want to say a couple of things that I think are so important before you load a quilt. Number one, if the quilt top, the quilt backing, or the quilt design is directional, you need to load it so that the direction is correct. I generally prefer, if there's no issue with directions at all, I generally prefer to put the length across my bars. Then I can get the job done faster and easier. But this fabric in particular, I will show you, it's a really cute bike fabric. And yeah, it's definitely directional. So that makes my decision immediately. I have to load with the length going across the bars and not along the bars. So let's talk about how we're going to load it. I'm going to tell you, I really very seldom worry about centering it perfectly, you know, match the ends and get your dead center. I don't worry about that. I found that I honestly can tell if the quilt's not going straight, and it doesn't make it better or faster to do it the other way. So what I do first is I take my leader. I use the back bar and the front bar. The bar in the middle, the backing bar, I don't use at all. I do that for two reasons. I only need 2 bars to load the way I load because I guess they call it a partial float. I baste as I go down. So I am only loaded on the back bar and the front bar. The other thing it does is it allows me to, you notice, well, in a little while you'll notice I have mirrors back there. I can shine a flashlight on the bottom of the quilt and the stitches will show in the mirror. And with nothing in the middle bar, I can see the backing of my quilt a lot better. Okay, so I take my leader and it's across the bar and I loop it up and I lay it across. Pretty simple. Just, I have that flat edge here. Now, if you want the staple to stay in the fabric, so you want the long part of the staple to be in the fabric, not in your leader. If you put it in your leader, you're going to have to pick them out, and you'll do it once, but you probably won't want to do it again. Okay, so here's my fabric. This quilt is actually, the backing is actually fairly square. If a customer brings me a backing that's not square, I will take the time to teach them how to square it up. And after that, if they don't square it up and I need to, I charge them for my time. I'm just finger placing the quilt backing even with the edge of the quilt itself. Now I need to find my stapler. Here it is. I have my stapler and I go about center. You don't have to measure exactly. And as soon as the fabric hits a little place right in here, it sends out a staple. That's good news for a couple of things. One reason it's good is a staple holds the fabric down very smoothly. You don't have the pinch in fabric that you do when you use a pin. The other thing is because that, when it hits that is when it sends out a staple, the spacing from the edge to that point is even all the way down. So I staple in the middle and then I work out from there. And if you just keep your stapler in place and just move along, just like this. Now, when I get to the edge, if I rarely have a problem with anything pulling out, but if I ever do, it's always on that last staple because there's a little more stress on the edge. I put an extra staple too, right next to each other. Come back to the middle, and staple again to the edge. Whoops, I just pulled that up a little. It's fast and easy. I just can't even... I used to dread loading quilts. I'm not kidding. I used to think it was the most boring part, and I dreaded it. At this point, then I drop this down, and I'm going to go to the back. Okay, everybody, I'm at the back of the frame now, and I rolled, at the beginning I rolled straight, but I purposely rolled a little bit of it crooked. Do you see? I can immediately tell that this quilt isn't rolling straight. See the ripples that we have here? And in this case, the real easy way to fix that is to just flap it up a little bit, get it straight. And do you see the smoothness now? What a difference it makes. So I have my quilt rolled up till it gets onto the table. And notice the leader is underneath it. I'm going to pull the leader. Let me adjust the camera a little. I'm going to pull the leader just till it comes right to the edge of the quilt backing. And like I said, this one is fairly square. It's not an issue. And just like before, I'm going to start stapling in the center and work my way out. I staple about every 3 to 4 inches. I've never found stapling closer helped. I can tell you when I was first taught how to pin, and I was taught to pin edge pin to pin to pin, it took me 3 seconds to go, wonder what would happen if I left out a pin. Anyway, I had these staples in, again, putting an extra staple in the end, and finally going to the middle of this and out to the outside. Then everybody has 2 questions as soon as we start talking about loading this way. The first question is, how do you get it off quickly? And that's when I get my other gadget that I love, and it's a Black & Decker. I don't know if they make Black & Decker anymore. I did see one on eBay, not eBay. I did see one on Amazon. It seemed a lot pricier than when I bought it, but I love electric rechargeable scissors. And what I do is run the scissors about a ½ an inch to an inch away from the edge of the backing on either end, on the front or the back, and zip along real quick. And then that leaves 1 inch, and in that 1 inch is still attached to the leaders, right? I've cut off the quilt, and I grab that piece of fabric and just pop it up, and the staples will be in the piece of fabric, and I throw the piece of fabric away. And I can unload a quilt in, 4 minutes, and load a quilt in 15. And so, quicker, easier. I hope you find it helpful. Thank you. I just realized I forgot to say the second thing. The first thing was, how do you get it off? The second thing is, does it wear out your leaders? I would say that my leaders do have a little bit more wear and tear than the average person who does not staple, but not a lot. As many quilts as I do, and I just now have new leaders to replace mine with. I haven't done it yet, but I have them to do it because some of the edges are getting a little worn. But for the time saving, it's well worth replacing my leaders occasionally. Thanks, everybody.